Hello and welcome to another video trying to get you the very top grades. Today I'm starting with a question I get a lot, which is how do I learn quotations, and also which quotations should I actually learn? And this can seem overwhelming. There are 15 poems, you've got a novel, you've got probably an Inspector Calls, and you've also got the Shakespeare plays. It's a huge amount to learn. How do we stop that being overwhelming? And actually, how can we rationalize it so you don't have to know too many quotations and still get the top grades? If you would like to know the answer to that, stay tuned. Okay, well, let's go to the mark scheme first. And what the mark scheme really wants us to have is an interpretation, or actually more than one. So for grade 7, I need more than one interpretation of things. And in order to get the interpretations, I need to know about the writer's views. That's where the context comes in. And the writer will always have some big ideas that they're thinking about connected to the context of their time. And in literature, we call these big ideas themes. Now, most students think about learning quotations for characters, and that's the wrong place to start, okay? You're going to be much more efficient if you start with quotations that link to the big ideas, that link to themes. Let me show you how that will help you. So when you get to the question in the exam, the examiner won't ask you really about themes. They won't mention the word themes in the question, but your tactic is going to be to apply the themes whatever the question. I'm quickly going to show you how to find the AQA exam papers here. Type in AQA. Go straight to the first link, click on subjects rather than past papers, select your subject from the scroll down menu. For us it's going to be English. Then we want GCSE, and we're going to choose literature instead of language. And down here we can see the sample papers and mark schemes. We're going to nick one of those. And so available to everyone, whether you're a student or a teacher or somebody living in Afghanistan, it doesn't matter. You can get hold of the June paper 1, June paper 2, and the specimen papers that were put out before the exams were first sat. I'm going to open the question paper for Shakespeare and the 19th century novel. So in Macbeth, the question was about ambition. I won't tell you about which character, because that doesn't matter. The question is asking you about ambition in the whole of the play, whatever the character they choose in the extract. It doesn't really matter who the character is. In Romeo and Juliet, the question is about aggressive male behaviour. In other words, it's about the patriarchy and the patriarchal society. Now, you might get a question about a character. So this is about the Tempest. Don't worry if you've never studied it. That doesn't matter here. So it asks us how Shakespeare presents Ariel at this moment in the play and in the play as a whole. Well, that's not asking me about the theme. However, if we take the two themes that we've looked at, we can look at masculinity and the patriarchy. That will fit this character because they're either male or female. Actually, what's really interesting is Ariel is both. And we can also look at the theme of ambition. So how does Shakespeare use Ariel to show the idea of ambition? Now, coming at the question with my themes in mind means that I already know what I'm going to write about, no matter who the character is, but it also means I'm going to write at a really sophisticated level because I'm interpreting. Yep, so if we jump into The Merchant of Venice, we're looking at Portia, who's a female character. How's she a strong female character? Well, I'm going to write about the patriarchy again, or I could write about her ambition. So the themes will fit no matter what the text. And now if we go to the 19th century novel, we got Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and we're asked how far we feel sympathy for Dr. Jekyll. Well, if we approach this through the themes, we'll get a much more sophisticated answer. In fact, I can use the theme of ambition again here, or I could use the idea of the patriarchy, because this is a novel entirely about the hypocrisy of middle-class men. So Stevenson could be using Dr. Jekyll to show the dangers of having a society that marginalizes and takes away the power of women. And then we can come down to A Christmas Carol. We're asked about the Cratchit family, and we have to look at the struggles of the poor in the novel as a whole. Can I link that to ambition? Yes, because I can say that the poverty of Victorian England is created by the ambition of the rich, that therefore keeps welfare and earnings away from the poor, and Scrooge symbolises that. Similarly, I can take the view of the patriarchal society where women are marginalised in this novel, and they're actually just seen as sex objects, particularly by the narrator, who's quite a randy character. So hopefully I've convinced you that you're going to choose quotations that relate to themes, because no matter what the question is, you're going to be able to write about those themes. I actually made it really difficult for myself because I only wrote about 2 themes. Hopefully you remember one of them was the theme of ambition, and the other one was about the patriarchy, which you should know by now means a society controlled by men in the interests of men and excluding power from women. You will actually know many more themes than this connected to the text you're studying. Now, the other good news about this approach is that the exam mark scheme talks about having more than one interpretation when you get to grade 7 and above. And if you're writing about more than one theme, you're obviously having more than one interpretation, and the examiner will start your essay thinking, I've got to give this a grade 7 so far, and that anchors their expectations. So if your essay then gets not very good, you won't come down below a grade 6, having started at a 7. So it's a really great way to improve your grade, even if you're not anywhere near a grade 7 yet. Okay, now I know that themes are going to get me the top grades. I just need to write down the themes of the text that I'm studying. And I'm going to introduce you to the idea of 5 here, because it's actually psychologically really easy to manage for the brain. I don't know why, but there you go. Maybe it's because we've got 5 fingers. But write down the 5 key themes of your text. If you don't know them, look them up. That's really easy to do on my channel. So my most watched video last year was revise all the themes of Macbeth to improve your grade. Well, your next step is just to now find 5 quotations for each theme, which will give you 25 quotations in total. Now, just picking 5 quotations for each theme is a really brilliant revision tool in itself, because you will really have to think hard to find the best ones, and also for some themes you might struggle to get 5. You might only have 3 that come naturally. So it will make you think hard, and when you think hard you learn. That is in fact one of the definitions of learning. Right, next you've got to write down the main characters, and I'm going to limit you to 5, although in practice you might find there are fewer. So in Macbeth you're going to write about Macbeth, Lady Macbeth, the witches, Banquo, and perhaps Macduff. And in Jekyll and Hyde you might just have obviously Jekyll, Hyde, Utterson, and Enfield, and perhaps if you really wanted him, Poole. Or I actually prefer the minor character, the maid who sees Sir Danvers Carew being killed by Hyde. Now, once you've got your characters, you don't go away and find quotations for them. Instead, you look at the quotations that you already have for your themes. Remember, there were 25 of those, and now you divide those up by character. And you think, right, which quotations will fit which character? And you add those to the character list. And because we're thinking in 5s, you might only have 3 quotations for Enfield, let's say, and I'm asking you to get 5, so then you've got to go and find 2 more quotations that tell us about that character. Usually this will be a minor character that you're struggling with, so in Macbeth it would be someone like Macduff, or perhaps even Banquo. Okay, so if you have 5 themes and 5 characters and not all the theme quotations fit your characters, I imagine you've got a maximum of 35 quotations. And some of you will be quite happy with that. You'll go away and learn your 35 quotations, but I'm going to show you a simpler method. Right, my next job is to find the uber quotations, the super quotations. And these are the ones that fit more than one theme and more than one character. So if I can find quotations that I can use for several characters or several themes, I know these are going to be ones that I bank on. These are going to be quotations I use no matter what the question. And once I've got my list of 35, it will be easy for me to spot a few of these that will just jump out at me. Right, I'm going to demonstrate this with a quotation from Jekyll and Hyde. And this is the moment where Jekyll kills Sir Danvers Carew and he's watched by a maid who describes the incident later. So here's the long quotation. With ape-like fury he was trampling his victim underfoot and hailing down a storm of blows under which the bones were audibly shattered and the body jumped upon the roadway. At the horror of these sights and sounds the maid fainted. Okay, well, what themes does this relate to? Well, the ape-like fury obviously relates to the theme of science and evolution, because Stevenson is suggesting that we are all descended from apes and that the violence and primitive behaviour is within us and just beneath the surface. This also leads us to the conflict between science and Christianity, because this theory of evolution is challenging the view put forward by Genesis in the Bible that we were all created in 7 days. So it challenges Christian faith. It also illustrates the theme of drug addiction. Hyde is a symbol of the drug addiction that that Jekyll has. Jekyll literally has to take a drug to begin with in order to become Hyde, and Hyde is like the embodiment of this warning about what will happen to you if you give in to the temptation of drugs. It's also connected to the theme of good and evil. This moment asks us to decide whether human nature is at root more evil than good, and is that why Hyde gradually takes over from Jekyll even when he doesn't take the drug? Is Stevenson suggesting that evil is much more powerful than our sense of good? And finally, we've got the theme of the Gothic novel, which focuses on horror and heightened emotion. And we can see this in the over-exaggerated way that Hyde kills this poor man, so that we can actually hear the bones shattering and the body actually looks like it's jumping on the roadway, even though Hyde is actually standing on top of him. So it seems highly unlikely this would happen. And then you've got the classic stereotypical Victorian reaction of a woman who faints at the sight of this Gothic horror. So I know this is one of my uber quotations that I'm going to use whatever the question is. Doesn't matter what the question is, this is going to fit 100% of the time. Okay, well, when I start thinking about my quotations this way and identifying my uber ones, I'll probably get down to 15 to 20 key quotations that will fit loads of characters and all the themes. Okay, my next task is to make these quotations easy to remember. And obviously I want to get rid of the huge number of words in this quotation. So I pick on the main idea, which will often be no more than 5 words. Here it's ape-like fury. I know I'm going to be able to use that. However, around ape-like fury I'm going to write these words, and let me tell you why. I'm going to pick on the word audibly because that's a sound that's created here. And therefore I can write about how that links to the Gothic element of horror and over-exaggeration. The maid wouldn't actually be able to hear the bones breaking, probably from where she's sitting, which is at a window on the upper floor of a house in the distance. And even if she could, it's a really Gothic detail to bring out the sense of horror that Stevenson's readers want. Then I can pick on the word jumped, which shows the incredible violence of Hyde, but also a level of violence that's implausible because the body couldn't actually jump when Hyde is actually on top of it, and therefore Stevenson's doing something sophisticated here. He wants us to realise this is a complete over-exaggeration because he's making fun of his own readers who are so desperate for this Gothic sense of horror that they'll believe anything, even if it's demonstrably untrue. And then finally I can pick on this word fainted because I can use it to explore the role of women in this novel, and they are presented in a very duplicitous way. Duplicitous means that they are deceiving, and it's obvious that the maid doesn't really need to faint. She does it because that's the stereotypical way that women are supposed to behave, and in fact this probably never happened because it's only in her own account. And later on we discover that she spends many evenings recounting this story of great horror, which kind of suggests that it wasn't really that horrifying at all. She's actually enjoyed it just as you might now enjoy a horror film. So the point of that is to show you to pick the main idea in the quotation, but then think of other words in the longer quotation which will help you write in more detail about the themes. So these two themes I had were the Gothic here and the patriarchal society with its unflattering portrayal of women. Okay, hopefully you now have a way forward to choosing the quotations you're going to learn, and in my next video I will show you how to learn them. Don't forget to subscribe for other help in getting you the very top grades. See you soon on my channel.